6 months after the Battle of Helios Nebula, the galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have imagined. The great station of Nexus Prime bustled with activity, but now the corridors carried voices speaking in dozens of languages, including one that had been silent for 3,000 years. Ambassador Ji-young walked through the rebuilt human embassy, her footsteps echoing on floors made from materials that had never been seen before in the galaxy. The building rose from the exact spot where humanity's original capital had stood, but instead of hiding the past, the new structure celebrated it. Through transparent floors, visitors could see the carefully preserved ruins of the ancient human Senate. Holographic displays showed what the city had looked like before its destruction, and memorial walls listed the names of every human who had died during the Great Cleansing. Ambassador, called Dr. Myre as she approached with a small group of Athari scholars, the integration reports are ready for your review. Ji-young smiled and accepted the data tablet. The Athari had become humanity's closest allies during the reconstruction process, their natural love of knowledge making them eager to learn from human science and history. How are the joint archaeological projects progressing? Ji-young asked. Better than expected, Dr. Myre replied. We have now uncovered human settlements on 83 worlds. The artifact preservation teams are working around the clock to save what can be saved. As they talked, a group of young beings walked past. Humans, Ithari, and even a few Kithari, all wearing the uniforms of the new Galactic Archaeological Service. They chatted easily together, their different species working as partners rather than rivals. It is amazing how quickly the young ones adapt, Dr. Myre observed. They do not carry the burden of their ancestors' guilt. Ambassador Ji-young nodded. That is the point. We are not here to punish the children for their grandparents' crimes. We are here to build something better. The integration program had surprised everyone with its success. Rather than demanding mass evacuations or imposing harsh occupation, rules, the humans had developed a careful plan that allowed current inhabitants to remain on most worlds, while gradually restoring human presence. On Kepler Prime, the process had become a model for other worlds. Captain Yoonji now served as the human colonial administrator, working closely with Governor Malthan to manage the transition. The Vorthak population had initially feared the worst, but they found that human rule was actually more fair and efficient than what they had known before. The humans have technology that makes everything easier, Governor Malthan had reported to the council. Their medical centers can heal injuries we thought were permanent. Their agricultural systems have doubled our food production. Our people are healthier and happier than they have been in generations. The key to success had been the humans' approach to justice. Instead of seeking revenge, they focused on restoration. Every world that accepted human oversight received massive investments in infrastructure, education, and technology. The results were impossible to argue with, but not everyone had chosen cooperation. The Vorthak Empire's core worlds remained defiant, under General Korthan's leadership. He had declared the outer territories traitors for accepting human rule and had fortified the inner systems for a war he was determined to fight. Let them come, he had announced in his final transmission to the galaxy. The Vorthak do not bow to anyone, human or otherwise. We will show them that some spirits cannot be broken. Captain Minho commanded the human fleet that approached the Vorthak home system. His ships moved slowly, broadcasting messages of peace and offering last-chance negotiations. But the only response was weapons fire from heavily fortified planetary defense platforms. Sir, reported his communications officer, General Korthan is transmitting on all frequencies. He says he would rather see his worlds burn than surrender them to aliens. Captain Minho sighed. He had hoped it would not come to this, but some people could only learn through experience. Begin demonstration protocol, he ordered. What happened next became known as the Day of Silence in Vorthak history. The human fleet did not attack the planets or their populations. Instead, they targeted something much more fundamental, technology itself. Using weapons that manipulated electromagnetic fields in ways that council science could not understand, the humans shut down every piece of advanced technology in the Vorthak home system. Computers stopped working, weapon systems went dark, Even simple electronic devices became useless pieces of metal and plastic. The Vorthak found themselves suddenly living in a pre-industrial society. No lights, no communications, no transportation beyond what their own muscles could provide. But their people were unharmed, their cities undamaged, their food supplies intact. Captain Minho broadcast a simple message to the darkened worlds. This is what total war looks like when fought by humans. We do not destroy civilizations. We simply remove their ability to harm others. When you are ready to talk instead of fight, turn on a signal fire. We will be waiting. The darkness lasted for 3 days. On the third night, fires began to appear on every Vorthak world. Not signal fires of surrender, but something else entirely. The humans' scanners revealed that the Vorthak were burning their military equipment and weapons. General Korthan himself lit the first fire, throwing his ceremonial sword into the flames before standing before a human communication device that had been left unaffected by the electromagnetic pulse. "I am General Korthan of the Vorthak Empire," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "I surrender my forces and my authority to the human colonial administration, but I ask for one thing in return." "What is that?" Captain Minho replied. "Teach us. Teach us how to be better than what we were. My people are warriors, but we have forgotten what we were supposed to be fighting for." The integration of the Vorthak worlds proved to be more challenging than others, but also more rewarding. The warrior culture that had made them so difficult to defeat also made them incredibly dedicated once they committed to change. Commander Thailand became one of the most effective human allies, using his knowledge of Vorthak military tradition to help transform the Empire's armies into peacekeeping forces. Former soldiers became archaeologists, historians, and engineers, channeling their disciplined nature into reconstruction projects. "My ancestors made a terrible mistake," Thailand said during one of the integration ceremonies. "They chose fear over friendship, war over wisdom. We will not repeat their errors." By the end of the first year, the transformation was remarkable. The galaxy that had been divided into competing empires and suspicious alliances had become a cooperative community. The humans' advanced technology, freely shared with their new partners, had eliminated poverty, disease, and resource scarcity on most worlds. Dr. Mirai, now serving as the Director of Galactic Historical Studies, published a report that summarized the changes. "In 12 months, we have achieved more scientific progress, cultural exchange, and social development than the previous council accomplished in 12 centuries. But perhaps the most significant change was harder to measure in statistics. For the first time in galactic history, different species were working together not out of necessity or fear, but because they wanted to build something greater than any of them could achieve alone." Ambassador Ji-young stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime, looking out at the stars that had once seemed so cold and empty during humanity's exile. Now they looked like points of light marking the locations of friends and partners. "Ma'am," said her aide, a young human woman named Soyeon, "the deep space exploration reports are in. Captain Minho's fleet has made contact with 3 new civilizations beyond the galactic rim." "Friendly contact?" Ji-young asked. "Very friendly. They are eager to meet the species they have heard legends about. Apparently humans are famous throughout this entire galactic cluster." Ji-young smiled. "Famous for what?" "For being the gardeners who can make dead worlds bloom again." As if to prove the point, a transport ship appeared in the distance, arriving from one of the restored worlds. Its hull was covered with symbols from a dozen different species, and its cargo hold carried art, music, literature, and scientific discoveries from across the galaxy. The humans had kept their promise. They had returned not as conquerors but as gardeners, and the garden they were growing was larger and more beautiful than anyone had dared to imagine. In the end, the galaxy learned that some legends return not for revenge, but for redemption. The species that had once destroyed human civilization now helped to restore it, and in doing so, they discovered that they had restored something in themselves as well. The age of the council was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and in the vast darkness between stars, new human fleets were already setting course for other galaxies, carrying with them the seeds of friendship and the tools to make any wasteland into a garden. The humans had come home. But home, they had learned, was not a place. It was a promise to make every world better than they found it. And that promise, once made, would never be broken again. The news of the Battle of Helios Nebula spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the weeks that followed, entire civilizations watched the footage over and over, trying to understand how their greatest military fleet had been destroyed so easily. On every council world, the reaction was different. Some species, like the scholarly Athari, immediately began preparing for negotiations. Others, like the proud Vorthak, refused to believe what they had seen. But all of them felt the same deep fear. Everything they had built might come crashing down. Dr. Mirai worked day and night in the archives on Etheri Prime, but now she was not alone. Teams of archaeologists, historians, and scientists had joined her search for the truth about humanity's past. What they found changed everything they thought they knew about galactic history. "Look at this," said Dr. Kellen, holding up a data crystal that had been hidden in the deepest vaults of the library. "It is sealed with security codes I have never seen before." Mirai took the crystal carefully. It was heavier than it should have been, and warm to the touch. When she inserted it into the archive reader, a warning message appeared. "Classified, Council Founders only, automatic deletion after viewing." "Should we open it?" Dr. Kellen asked nervously. "We have to," Mirai replied. "The humans are coming, and we need to know what really happened." She entered her highest security codes, and the crystal began to play. What they saw made both scholars sit down heavily in their chairs. The recording showed a meeting of the early council leaders, but these were not the wise founders they had learned about in school. These beings looked scared and angry. In the eye center of the room stood a holographic display, showing human ships leaving burning worlds. "The operation is complete," reported a Vorthak general who looked like a younger version of Commander Thylan. "All major human settlements have been destroyed or abandoned. The survivors are fleeing to the Rim territories." An Ethari leader nodded approvingly. Good. The humans were becoming too powerful. Their technology was advancing too quickly. Soon they would have surpassed all of us. "But they trusted us," protested a voice from off-screen. "They shared their knowledge freely. They helped us build our civilizations." "And that was their mistake," replied a Kithri representative. "Trust is a luxury we could not afford. Better to strike first than to wait for them to realize their superiority." The recording continued for hours, showing meeting after meeting, where the council leaders planned what they called the Great Cleansing. They had not driven out the humans in a moment of fear or anger. They had planned it carefully, deliberately over many years. Dr. Mirai felt sick as she watched. The festival of unity that their history books celebrated as the birth of galactic civilization had actually been a trap. The humans had come to celebrate friendship between the species, and instead they had found betrayal and destruction. "They invited the humans to celebrate with them," she whispered, "and then they attacked during the festivities when the humans' defenses were down." The final entry in the recording was the worst. It showed the aftermath of the attacks, with human cities burning and refugee ships fleeing into deep space. But the council leaders were not satisfied with victory. They wanted to make sure the humans could never return. "Destroy all records of their technology," ordered the Athari leader. "Burn their libraries, scatter their knowledge. Let future generations believe they were nothing but primitive explorers who died out naturally." "What about the ruins?" asked someone. "Bury them. Build our cities on top of their graves. In 1,000 years, no one will remember that humans ever existed." The recording ended with the council leaders toasting their success with drinks that had been stolen from human storehouses. Dr. Mirai and Dr. Kellen sat in silence for a long time after the crystal finished playing. Finally, Kellen spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "We built our entire civilization on a lie." "Worse than that," Mirai replied. "We built it on a crime." While the truth was being uncovered on Etheri Prime, human archaeological teams had begun excavating sites across the galaxy. Captain Yunji led one of these teams on the world of Kepler Prime, where 5 million Vorthak citizens watched nervously as humans dug carefully through their capital city. The humans worked with tools that seemed almost magical. Their scanners could see through solid rock, and their excavation equipment could remove dirt and stone without disturbing the artifacts beneath. In just 1 week, they had uncovered a section of the ancient human city that had been buried for 3,000 years. "Captain," called one of her team members, "you need to see this." Yunji walked over to where the archaeologist was kneeling beside a partially uncovered wall. The stone was covered with carvings, but these were not decorative. They were words, written in the ancient human language. "What does it say?" asked Governor Malthan, the Vorthak leader who had been assigned to watch the excavation. Yunji read the words slowly, her voice heavy with emotion. "It says, 'To our children who may someday return, we forgive those who wronged us, but we do not forget. Build something better than what was destroyed here.'" She stood up and looked at the Vorthak governor. "This is a school, Governor Malthan. We have found the remains of over 200 human children in the classrooms below. They died when your ancestors bombed this building during the Festival of Unity." Governor Malthan stared at the inscription. He was an old soldier who had seen many battles, but this discovery shook him. I did not know." "None of you knew," Yunji replied. "That was the point. The truth was buried along with our cities. Similar discoveries were being made on dozens of worlds." On Nexus Prime itself, the most shocking revelation came when human teams began excavating beneath the council chambers. They found the ruins of humanity's original capital city, complete with government buildings, universities, and cultural centers. The Grand Council chamber where alien representatives met to decide the fate of the galaxy was built directly on top of the Human Senate building, where those same decisions had once been made by humanity's elected leaders. When this news reached the current council members, the reaction was immediate and severe. 3 species withdrew from the council entirely, declaring that they could not be part of an organization founded on such deception. Others demanded investigations into their own world's histories. Commander Thailand stood in the ruins of what had once been a human playground, now buried beneath a Vorthak military academy. Human children's toys lay scattered among the debris, preserved by the dry climate for 3 millennia. "My ancestors did this," he said quietly to Captain Yunji, who was documenting the site. "Yes," she replied simply. "Why do you not hate us? Why have you not killed us all in revenge?" Yunji knelt down and picked up a small toy spaceship, its paint, faded but still recognizable. "Because our children played with toys like this once, dreaming of exploring the stars in peace. We will not dishonor their memory by becoming the monsters our enemies claimed we were." She stood up and looked at the Vorthak commander. "But make no mistake, Commander. Justice will be served. The question is whether it will be merciful justice or the absolute kind." On Etheri Prime, Dr. Mirai made one final discovery that changed everything. Hidden in the personal files of the ancient Etheri leader who had helped plan humanity's exile, she found a single data entry that made her heart stop. Personal log, date 2847.3.15. The human technology we captured during the cleansing operations has been distributed among the council species as planned. Their fusion reactors will power our cities. Their medical knowledge will extend our lives. Their agricultural techniques will feed our growing populations. The entry continued. "It is ironic that we destroy them for being too advanced, then use their own inventions to build our new civilization. But history is written by the victors. Future generations will believe we developed these technologies ourselves." Dr. Mirai realized with growing horror that almost every major technological advancement in council civilization had actually been stolen from the humans. Their power systems, their medical treatments, their space travel technology, it had all belonged to humanity first. The council species had not just stolen human worlds. They had stolen human achievements and claimed them as their own. She sent her findings to every major government in the galaxy, along with a simple message. We owe them more than their worlds back. We owe them everything. The response was swift and dramatic. On some worlds, riots broke out as citizens demanded their leaders explain the lies they had been told. On others, Massive protests called for immediate reparations to humanity. But on the military worlds of the Vorthak Empire, a different response was brewing. General Corthan, brother to Commander Thylon and leader of the Vorthak High Command, read Dr. Murray's report and made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. So what if we took their worlds? He declared to his staff. So, what if we used their technology? We won. They lost. That is how war works. He activated the emergency military networks and sent a message to every Vorthak fleet commander. The humans think their ancient claims give them the right to destroy our civilization. They are wrong. We will show them that the strong take what they want, and the weak suffer in silence. Prepare for total war. Unknown to General Corthan, his communications were being monitored by human intelligence. The Helios Nebula had never seen so many ships in one place. For 3 days, vessels from across the galaxy had been arriving to join the greatest military fleet in Council history. Over 10,000 warships floated in formation, their hulls gleaming with weapon arrays and shield generators. Fleet Admiral Dongyuk stood on the bridge of the massive Vorthak dreadnought Iron Fist and watched his forces prepare for battle. Ships from 12 different species worked together, their crews united by a common purpose, to show these returning humans that the galaxy had new masters now. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "the Etheri science vessels have finished their scanning runs. The human fleet numbers approximately 800 ships." Admiral Donghyuk smiled grimly. The humans were outnumbered more than 12 to 1. Whatever advanced technology they possessed, it could not overcome such overwhelming numbers. "Any response to our surrender demands?" he asked. "None, sir. They maintain their position at the edge of the nebula and ignore all communications." Through the main view screen, Donghyuk could see the human fleet in the distance. Their ships were dark and sleek, moving in perfect formation like a school of deep-sea predators. Even from this distance, there was something unsettling about them. "Begin the attack," he ordered. Across the Council fleet, weapons powered up and targeting systems locked onto the human vessels. The first wave consisted of 2,000 ships, mostly Vorthak heavy cruisers and Kithri energy platforms. They noddy accelerated toward the human fleet, their weapons already charging. On the human flagship Indomitable Will, Fleet Admiral Hyong watched the approaching Council forces with calm eyes. She was younger than most fleet commanders, but her crew followed her without question. They had trained for this moment for their entire lives. "Range to target?" she asked quietly. 40,000 kilometers in closing, her weapons officer replied. "They will be in firing range in 30 seconds. Defensive fields active? All systems ready, Admiral." Hyong nodded. "Then let us show them what we learned in exile." The Council fleet opened fire first. Thousands of energy beams and plasma bolts streaked across space toward the human ships. The weapons were powerful enough to crack asteroids and melt through the heaviest armor known to galactic science. The beams struck the human vessels directly, and nothing happened. Admiral Donghyuk stared at his screens in disbelief. The energy readings showed direct hits on dozens of human ships, but they continued flying as if nothing had touched them. "Report," he barked. "Sir, our weapons are hitting their targets, but the energy is being redirected somehow," his science officer said, her voice filled with confusion. "It looks like space itself is bending around their ships." "That is impossible." "Yes, sir, but it is happening anyway." The human fleet began to move, but instead of advancing in a straight line like any normal fleet would do, they seemed to flicker and shift. One moment a ship was directly ahead, the next it appeared from a completely different angle. "They are teleporting," someone shouted. "Ships cannot teleport," Admiral Donghyuk roared back. "There is no such technology." But even as he spoke, human vessels materialized throughout his formation. They appeared inside the Council fleet like ghosts stepping out of walls, their weapons already firing. The human weapons were unlike anything the Council forces had ever seen. Instead of energy beams or explosive missiles, they fired something that looked like twisted starlight. When these weapons hit Council ships, the vessels did not explode or burn. They simply stopped existing. The Vorthak cruiser, Blood Thunder, was struck by one of these weapons and dissolved into its component atoms in seconds. The crew did not even have time to scream. Where a proud warship had been, there was now only empty space and scattered particles. Evasive action, Admiral Donghyuk commanded, but his ships could not evade enemies that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. The human vessels moved through his fleet like hunters among prey. They would appear, fire their terrible weapons, and vanish before the Council ships could respond. In 10 minutes, over 300 Council vessels had been destroyed. But the most terrifying thing was not the destruction. It was the precision. Every Council ship that tried to surrender was allowed to withdraw safely. Every escape pod that launched was escorted to a safe distance by human fighters. The humans were not killing out of anger or bloodlust. They were conducting a surgical operation, removing military threats while carefully avoiding unnecessary casualties. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from the human flagship. Put it on screen." Admiral Hyong appeared before them, her uniform crisp and her expression calm. Behind her, the bridge of her ship hummed with activity, but there was no sign of damage or stress. "Admiral Donghyuk," she said pleasantly, "I believe you wish to discuss surrender terms." Donghyuk felt his face burn with shame and rage. "We came here to fight, not to surrender." "Yes, I can see that. How is it working out for you?" Around them, more Council ships were dissolving under human fire. The great fleet that had been assembled to show galactic might was being dismantled piece by piece. "What do you want?" Donghyuk asked through gritted teeth. "I want you to go home, Admiral. Take your surviving ships and return to your worlds. Tell your people what you have seen here today." "And if we refuse?" Admiral Hyong's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "Then in 1 hour there will be nothing left of your fleet but cosmic dust and bitter memories." She leaned forward slightly. "But I do not think that is necessary. You are a warrior, Admiral Donghyuk. You understand when a battle is lost. Your crews do not deserve to die for the mistakes of politicians." Donghyuk looked around his bridge. His officers stared at their screens in shock, watching their proud fleet being torn apart by an enemy they could not even properly target. The greatest military force in galactic history was being defeated by a smaller fleet using impossible technology. "Stand down all weapons," he ordered quietly. "Sir?" his weapons officer asked in disbelief. "You heard me. Signal general retreat. All ships are to return to base immediately." "Admiral," his second-in-command protested, "the Council will not accept surrender without a fight." Donghyuk turned to face him. "Look at the tactical display, Commander. We have lost over half our fleet in 20 minutes. The humans have lost 0 ships. This is not a fight. This is target practice, and we are the targets." On the human flagship, Admiral Hyong watched the Council fleet begin its retreat. Around her, the human vessels maintained their formation, their weapons powered. "Down but ready." "Should we pursue?" asked her tactical officer. "No, let them go. They will carry word of what happened here to every world in the galaxy." "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we have an open channel to all Council frequencies." Hyong nodded. This was the moment she had been waiting for. "Put me on all networks." Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched as the human admiral appeared on their screens. Her voice was calm and clear, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. "People of the galaxy," she began, "my name is Admiral Hyong of the Human Colonial Fleet. Today you witnessed the Battle of Helios Nebula, where your greatest military force was defeated by our advanced scout fleet." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I want to be very clear about what this means. We are not conquerors seeking to rule you. We are not invaders looking to steal your resources. We are gardeners who have returned to tend a garden that was burned in our absence." The image behind her changed to show the archaeological sites where human ruins had been uncovered. "For 3,000 years, you have built your civilizations on the graves of our people. You have told yourselves that we were myths, legends, ancient history that no longer mattered." Her voice grew harder. "But history has a way of catching up with those who try to bury it. We remember every world that was taken from us. We remember every promise that was broken. We remember every child who died when your ancestors chose fear over friendship. The image changed again, showing the human fleet as it really was. Not 800 ships, but thousands upon thousands, stretching out into the dark between stars. This was our advance force, Admiral Hyong continued. Our main fleet carries the population of humanity in exile. Billions of souls who have spent 3 millennia building new homes in the void between galaxies. They are coming home now, and they expect to find their worlds ready for them. She stood up and the camera followed her movement. To those who choose wisdom over pride, who value life over territory, we offer partnership and peace. Help us restore what was damaged, and we will share technologies that will benefit all species. Her expression became stern. But to those who choose war, who cling to stolen lands and refuse to acknowledge past wrongs, know this. We are no longer the peaceful explorers your ancestors drove into exile. We have become something harder, something more determined. She gestured, and the image showed the remains of the Council fleet limping away from the nebula. You have seen what our oldest ships can do. You do not want to meet our newest ones. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. In government buildings and military headquarters across thousands of worlds, leaders stared at blank screens and tried to understand what had just happened. The humans had. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest gathering in their history. Representatives from every member species crowded into the great chamber on Nexus Prime. The air was thick with tension and the smell of fear from a dozen different races. Vexithera tried to keep order, but voices rose in anger and panic throughout the room. Captain Jinwoo's report had spread quickly through the Council networks, and everyone wanted to speak at once. "This is impossible," shouted General Corthan of the Vorthak Military Command. "No extinct race can simply return after thousands of years. The evidence says otherwise," Dr. Mireille replied from her seat near the front. She looked exhausted from days of research, but her voice was steady. "I have found proof that humans lived on 47 of our most important worlds." The room erupted, in angry voices. Representatives demanded to see this proof, while others called Dr. Mireille a liar or a fool. But the noise stopped suddenly when the great doors of the chamber opened. A figure walked into the room, and everyone fell silent. She was tall and moved with perfect confidence, her dark hair pulled back in a simple style. Her uniform was deep blue with silver markings that seemed to shift and change in the light. But it was her eyes that made even the bravest warriors look away. They were ancient eyes, full of knowledge and pain and something else that no one wanted to name. "I am Admiral Suyung of the Human Colonial Fleet," she said. Her voice carried easily through the huge chamber without any need for amplification. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Vexithara found her voice first. "How did you get aboard this station? Our security fields should have stopped any unauthorized vessel." Admiral Suyung smiled, and several representatives moved backward, in their chairs. "Your security is designed to stop ships that follow the laws of physics as you understand them. We stopped following those laws a long time ago." Commander Thyland stood up, his massive frame towering over most of the room. "You dare to threaten the Council in our own chambers?" "I threaten no one," the Admiral replied calmly. "I am here to present facts and offer choices. What you do with both is up to you." She raised one hand, and the air above the chamber filled with images. They were not like the holographic displays the Council used. These images seemed solid and real, as if pieces of other worlds had been brought into the room. "This is Kepler Prime," Admiral Suyung said. The image showed a beautiful city with tall spires and green parks. "Your people call it the Crown, jewel of the outer colonies. 5 million Vorthak citizens live there in peace and prosperity." The image changed, showing the same location but different. The buildings were older, built in a style no one recognized. Strange vehicles moved through. The streets and the people walking on the sidewalks looked human. "This is Kepler Prime as it was 3,000 years ago," the Admiral continued, "before your ancestors arrived and buried our city beneath their own." General Corthan pointed at the image. This proves nothing. Any computer can make false pictures. Admiral. Su-Yung gestured again, and the image became even more detailed. They could see individual faces in the crowds, read signs written in human language, watch children playing in parks that were now covered by Vorthak military buildings. These are not computer images, she said. They are temporal recordings, captured by our archive systems before we were forced to leave. We have similar records for every world you now claim as your own. Dr. Mirai leaned forward in her chair. Temporal recording. That should be impossible. The energy requirements alone. Many things are impossible until you learn how to do them, Admiral Su-Yung replied. We had time to learn many impossible things during our exile. She waved her hand again, and the images changed to show excavation sites. Humans in environmental suits carefully uncovered ruins beneath current cities. The artifacts they found were clearly of human origin. We have been conducting archaeological surveys of our former worlds for the past 6 months, the Admiral explained. Every major population center in Council space is built directly on top of human settlements. Your greatest achievements rest on the foundations we laid. The Athari representative, Dr. Kellen, stood up nervously. Even if this is true, surely we can reach some kind of agreement. The galaxy is vast. There is room for all of us. Admiral Su-Yung turned to look at him, and he sat down quickly. Dr. Kellen, your people built their greatest library on Ithari Prime, did you not? The repository of all galactic knowledge? Yes, he replied weakly. That library sits on the site of our most important university. Beneath your books lie the bones of human children who died when your ancestors attacked their school. The Admiral's voice remained calm, but something dangerous flickered in her eyes. Tell me, Doctor, how do we share that space? The chamber fell into stunned silence. Even the sound of breathing seemed too loud. Vexathera tried to regain control of the situation. Admiral, even if these claims are true, you must understand that millions of innocent beings now live on these worlds. They had nothing to do with what happened long ago. You are correct, Admiral Su-Yung agreed. They are innocent. That is why we are giving them the opportunity to leave peacefully. Leave? Commander Thylan roared. You cannot expect entire civilizations to abandon their homes. Why not? The Admiral asked. Your ancestors expected us to do exactly that. She gestured once more, and new images filled the air. These showed massive human ships leaving worlds that burned beneath them. The pictures were hard to watch, full of pain and loss and desperate flight. This is how we left, Admiral Su-Yung said, running for our lives while our homes burned behind us. We saved what we could and fled into the dark between galaxies. We have spent 3,000 years building new homes in the void, growing, strong and planning our return. What do you want from us? Vexathera asked. Simple justice, the Admiral replied. Return what was stolen. Leave our worlds as we once left yours. We will give you the same chance for survival that you gave us. And, if we refuse? General Corthan demanded. Admiral Su-Yung's smile returned, and this time everyone in the room felt afraid. Then you will learn why your ancestors needed an entire galaxy working together to drive us away, and you will discover that we are no longer the peaceful explorers we once were. She began to walk toward the door, then paused. You have 72 standard hours to begin evacuations of the disputed worlds. After that time, we will begin reclamation procedures with or without your cooperation. You cannot do this, Commander Thylan shouted. The Council worlds will not submit to your demands. Admiral Su-Yung stopped and looked back at him. Commander, your fleet has 8,000 ships. We have counted them. They are impressive vessels, well-armed and crewed by brave warriors. She paused, letting her words sink in. Our advanced fleet has 12,000 ships. Our main fleet has not yet arrived, and our ships are built with 3,000 years of improved technology and a very strong desire for justice. Even so, Thylan said, though his voice was less certain now, we will fight you. Yes, the Admiral agreed sadly. I believe you will. Your species has always chosen pride over wisdom. It is why this galaxy has remained so primitive for so long. She walked to the chamber doors, which opened at her approach without anyone touching the controls. 72 Hours representatives. Use them wisely. After she left, the chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other, blamed each other, and demanded impossible solutions. But through all the noise, Dr. Mirai sat quietly at her table, reading the last page of an ancient human text. The words were simple but terrible. When justice is denied for long enough, it becomes vengeance. And vengeance, once awakened, does not rest until the debt is paid in full. She looked around at her fellow council members, still arguing and denying the reality of their situation. They did not understand what was coming. They thought this was a negotiation, a diplomatic crisis that could be solved with clever words and political compromise. But Dr. Mirai had read the human histories. She knew what her people had done 3,000 years ago. And she understood that the humans had not come home to talk. They had come home to collect what was owed to them. And the bill, she feared, was going to be much higher than anyone imagined. Outside the station, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to the struggles of the small beings who claimed to rule the galaxy. But hidden in the darkness, between those stars, thousands of human ships waited with infinite patience for their orders. The countdown to reclamation had begun. Dr. Mirai had not slept for 3 days. She sat in the great library of HFY Prime, surrounded by mountains of old books, data tablets, and crystal memory cores. The council had given her an important job: find out everything possible about the humans before their fleet arrived. The library was quiet except for the soft humming of the archive machines. Other HFY scholars worked at nearby tables, but they spoke in whispers. Everyone knew that something big was happening in the galaxy. Mirai rubbed her tired eyes and picked up another ancient text. This one was written on metal sheets that had turned green with age. The writing was in Old Galactic, a language that few people still understood. The Star Wanderers came from the third world of a yellow sun, she read aloud. They brought gifts, of knowledge and tools of great power. But their greatest gift was their spirit, which could not be broken by any force in the universe. She made notes on her tablet and reached for the next book. This one told a different story. The humans were warriors without equal. They could fight in the cold of space or the heat of a star. Their ships moved like living things, and their weapons could crack moons in half. Mirai frowned. Every book she read told a different story about the humans. Some said they were peaceful explorers. Others called them unstoppable fighters. A few claimed they had magical powers that let them do impossible things. Her communication device beeped softly. A message appeared on the screen. Captain Jinwoo reporting from the patrol fleet. The human ships are 3 days away from the Kepler system, requesting instructions. Mirai knew Captain Jinwoo. He was young for a Vorthak officer, but very brave. She worried about what would happen when he met the humans. She stood up and walked to the window of the library. Outside, she could see the beautiful blue sky of HFY Prime. This world had been her home for over 200 years. It was peaceful and safe, full of knowledge and learning. She could not imagine it any other way. But according to the old books, the humans had once lived here too. Mirai went back to her research. She found a data crystal that was older than most of the others. When she activated it, a 3-dimensional map appeared in the air above her table. It showed the galaxy as it had looked thousands of years ago. Green dots marked human settlements. There were hundreds of them, scattered across every part of the galaxy. Some were on worlds that were empty now. Others were on planets where council species lived today. HFY Prime was marked with a green dot. Mirai stared at the map for a long time. If it was accurate, then humans had lived on almost every important world in the galaxy. What had happened to them all? She found part of the answer in a collection of personal journals written by an ancient HFY explorer named Thexion. His words were hard to read because the language had changed so much over time, but the meaning was clear. The humans are leaving, one entry said. Their great ships take away thousands of people every day. The city grows empty. The machines fall, silent. Soon there will be nothing left but ruins and memories. Another entry was even more disturbing. The attack ships came in the night. They burned the human districts and destroyed the spaceports. The survivors flee to their vessels, but many will not escape. The Council worlds have made their choice. There will be no peace with the Star Wanderers. Mireille felt sick as she read these words. It sounded like the humans had not left willingly. They had been driven away by the ancestors of the current Council species. Meanwhile, far away in space, Captain Jinwoo stood on the bridge of his ship and stared at the scanner displays. The human fleet was enormous. His computers counted over 800 vessels and more were arriving all the time. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the lead human ship." Jinwoo straightened his uniform. He had been trained for first contact situations, but nothing had prepared him for this. "Put it on the main screen." The image that appeared made Jinwoo take a step backward. The human looked almost exactly like the pictures in the old history books. He was tall and strong, with dark hair and intelligent eyes. But there was something else in those eyes. Something that made Jinwoo's warrior instincts scream warnings. "I am Commander Taehyun of the vessel Eternal Return," the human said. His voice was calm and clear, and he spoke perfect galactic standard. "You are Captain Jinwoo of the Vorthak 3rd Patrol Fleet." Jinwoo was surprised that the human knew his name. "Yes, that is correct. By order of the Galactic Council, I must ask you to state your intentions in our space." Commander Taehyun smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Our intentions are simple, Captain. We have come home." "Home?" Jinwoo repeated. "Yes. These worlds belonged to us long before your council existed. We built cities where your people now live. We planted forests that your children play in. We dug the mines that made your civilization rich." Jinwoo looked at his crew. They all seemed as confused as he felt. "Sir, our records show that humans have been extinct for thousands of years." "Extinct?" Commander Taehyun laughed, and the sound made Jinwoo's skin crawl. "No, Captain. We were not extinct. We were exiled. There is a difference." The human leaned forward, and his image filled the screen. "Tell your council that we remember everything. Every world that was taken from us. Every city that was built on the bones of our people. Every lie that was told about our disappearance." Jinwoo tried to stay calm, but his hand moved toward his weapon without thinking. "What do you want from us?" "Justice," Commander Taehyun said simply. "The return of what was stolen, and payment for what was destroyed. And if the council refuses?" The human's smile grew wider. "Then you will learn why your ancestors feared us enough to drive us into the dark between stars. You will discover that some legends are true, Captain. And some legends are even worse than the stories say." The transmission ended, leaving Jinwoo staring at a blank screen. Around him, his crew worked frantically at their stations, but he could see the fear in their eyes. "Sir," said his science officer, "the human ships are moving again. They are heading directly for the Kepler system." Jinwoo nodded. "Send a priority message to the council. Tell them that first contact has been made, and the situation is complicated." Back on Aetheri Prime, Dr. Mireille received Captain Jinwoo's report. While she was reading another ancient text, the words on the page seemed to jump out at her. "When the Star Wanderers return, they will bring with them the fury of the void and the justice of the stars. Those who wronged them will face the consequences of their ancestors' choices. And the galaxy will learn that some debts can never be forgotten." Mireille's hands shook as she read these words. The book was over 3,000 years old, but it sounded like a prophecy written yesterday. She gathered all her research and prepared to send it to the council. But as she worked, she could not shake the feeling that it was already too late. The humans were not coming as explorers or traders. They were coming as judges, and the galaxy was about to learn what justice looked like when delivered by legends who had never forgotten the crimes committed against them. Outside her window, the sky was still blue and peaceful, but Mireille knew that peace was about to end. The humans were coming home, and they were bringing their memories with them. She thought about all the worlds where council species lived happy lives, never knowing that they were built on human graves. She thought about the children playing in those cities, innocent of their ancestors' crimes, and she wondered if the humans would care about innocence, or if their hunger for justice would consume everything in its path. The answer, she feared, would come very soon. The great station called Nexus Prime floated in the dark space between stars. It was huge, bigger than most planets, and home to millions of beings from across the galaxy. Today, something important was happening in the central chamber where the Galactic Council met every month. Vexithara stood at the front of the room. Her crystal body caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. She was the speaker for the council, which meant she ran the meetings. Around her sat representatives from 12 different alien species, each one looking very different from the others. "The meeting will start now," Vexithara said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "We have urgent business to discuss today." Commander Thylan shifted in his chair. He was a Vorthak, and his people were the military power of the galaxy. His gray skin was covered in scars from many battles, and his red eyes glowed in the dim light. He did not like urgent meetings. They usually meant trouble. "What kind of urgent business?" he asked, his voice deep and rough. Vexithara looked at a small device in her hand. "We have received strange reports from the outer rim. Ships have been seen moving toward our space, big ships. Ships we do not recognize." Scout Prime Zelix leaned forward. She was one of the Nethri, a race of thin, pale beings who were very good at watching and listening. Her large black eyes never missed anything. "I brought pictures," she said quietly. The room went dark, and images appeared in the air above them. Everyone could see the ships clearly now. They were enormous, much bigger than any ship they had ever seen. The hulls were dark metal with strange markings. They moved through space in perfect formation like they knew exactly where they were going. "How big are these ships?" asked Dr. Mireille. She was an Etheri, one of the scholar race. Her people kept all the knowledge in the galaxy, and she knew more about history than almost anyone. "The largest one is 3 times bigger than our biggest warship," Zelix answered. "And there are hundreds of them." Commander Thylan laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Impossible. The Vorthak fleet is the strongest in the galaxy. Nothing is bigger than our ships." "These are," Zelix said simply. The room became very quiet. Everyone stared at the images floating above them. The ships looked dangerous but also beautiful in a strange way. Their design was unlike anything any of them had seen before. "Where did they come from?" Vexithara asked. "The deep space beyond the rim," Zelix replied. "Our scouts first saw them 2 weeks ago. They have been moving steadily toward the core, worlds ever since." Dr. Mireille stood up slowly. She was old, even for an Ethari, and her blue skin had faded to almost white, but her mind was still sharp. "May I see those markings on the ships again?" The image zoomed in on the side of one vessel. Strange symbols covered the hull, arranged in patterns that seemed almost like writing. Dr. Mireille gasped. Her hands shook as she reached into her robes and pulled out an old tablet. She pressed buttons quickly and new images appeared next to the ship pictures. They were drawings on stone, very old and faded. "These markings," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I have seen them before." "Where?" Vexithara demanded. "In the ancient caves on dead worlds throughout the galaxy. We always thought they were just old art, made by primitive people who died out long ago." Dr. Mireille's voice grew stronger. "But these symbols match perfectly." Commander Thylan stood up, his massive frame casting a shadow across the room. "What are you saying, old woman?" Dr. Mireille looked around the room at all the different faces staring at her. "According to the old stories, there was once a race that traveled the stars before any of us. They were called humans. The legends say they were great warriors and builders, but they vanished thousands of years ago. Most of us thought they were just myths." "Myths do not build ships like these," Zelix said quietly. "No," Dr. Mireille agreed. "They do not." The room erupted in noise, as everyone started talking at once. Some representatives looked scared, others angry, and a few seemed excited. Vexithara rang a crystal bell to restore order. "If these humans are real," she said, "and if they are coming here, we need to know what they want." Commander Thylan slammed, his fist on the table. "It does not matter what they want. If they threaten the Council worlds, the Vorthak fleet will destroy them. With respect, Commander, Dr. Mirai said, you might want to read the old stories first. According to the legends, humans were never defeated in battle, they just left. Why would they leave if they were so powerful? Asked another representative. Dr. Mirai looked uncomfortable. The stories are not clear about that. Some say they grew tired of war. Others say something terrible happened that made them go away. Zelix activated her scanner and new information appeared. The human fleet will reach the first inhabited world in the Kepler system in 6 days. Should we send ships to meet them? Commander Thylon was already reaching for his communication device. I will take a battle group to intercept them. We will show these humans that the galaxy belongs to the Council now. Wait, Vexathara said. Perhaps we should try to talk to them first. The Vorthak do not talk to invaders, Thylon replied. We fight them. Dr. Mirai stood up again. Commander, please be careful. The old stories say that humans are very good at fighting, better than any race we know. Stories, Thylon said with disgust. I deal in facts, and the fact is that no one challenges the Vorthak fleet and survives. As the meeting continued, none of them noticed the small device hidden in the corner of the room. It had been recording everything they said. Far away on one of the mysterious ships moving through space, someone was listening to every word. On the bridge of the lead vessel, a figure in a dark uniform smiled as the council meeting ended. The smile was not cruel, but it was not kind, either. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting a very long time for this moment. So they remember us as legends, the figure said quietly. How interesting. They will learn soon enough that some legends are real. Outside the ship, stars wheeled slowly as the human fleet continued its steady approach toward the core worlds. In 6 days, the galaxy would discover that the greatest legend of all was coming home. The council representatives left the meeting room in small groups, each species talking quietly among themselves. They all felt that something big was about to happen, but none of them understood just how big it would be. In her private chamber, Dr. Mirai sat surrounded by old books and tablets. She read story after story about the humans, looking for any clue about what they might want. The more she read, the more worried she became. According to the legends, humans had once lived on many worlds throughout the galaxy. They had built great cities and amazing machines. They had been explorers and scientists and warriors all at the same time. And then suddenly, they were gone. Dr. Mirai found one story that made her hands shake as she read it. It told of a great betrayal, of trust broken and homes destroyed. It said the humans had tried to live in peace with other races, but that peace had been shattered by fear and jealousy. If the story was true, then the humans had good reason to be angry. And if they were as powerful as the legends claimed, that anger could destroy everything the council had built. Dr. Mirai reached for her communication device. She needed to warn the others about what she had found. But before she could send her message, all the lights in her chamber went out. In the darkness, she heard a sound she had never heard before. It was like music, but not quite. It was like singing, but in no language she knew. And somehow she understood that the humans were already here.